Hi folks, how are you all? Sorry, I'm a minute or two late. So great to be here. Great that people could take a little bit of time out to chat to me. I'll be giving people a few minutes to jump in. We're just, there's about 60 or 70 people just jumping in right now. So what we'll do is we'll give people a few minutes to come on. Now is the opportunity to get that coffee, get that drink. Or maybe you're listening to me as you're making dinner or doing homework or something along those lines. But hopefully you can all hear me. Hopefully you're getting a chance to kind of settle in, I suppose, and come along for the next hour and 15 minutes. And we'll go through as much as I possibly can in that block of time. And I'll make sure I leave a bit of time towards the end to be able to pick up on some questions as and when we have them. So I hope that makes a bit of sense. So let's just see how we're doing here. Just going to jump in here. Let a few more people in. Super. So my colleague Sarah is in the background as well. Sarah, yeah, I just added you as a panelist there, Sarah. So you'll be able to jump on. So in terms of this session, really what I'm doing is I'm going to give a presentation. I'm going to go through some Q&A that have kind of been coming in already. And then really it's about jumping into as many of your questions right here and right now as I can. What you will see and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give people the chance to drop in a few questions and a few comments. And really what I want to do through that Q&A, you'll see it, you should see it appear there. There's a Q&A box. So if you've got something that's burning, then pop in the question. What I have added this time around, which I think is going to be interesting, and let's see how it works, is I've allowed that you can upvote. So if you see a question and you say, that's something that I'm actually interested in, that's something that I want to learn about, then what I want you to do is just hit the upvote. You'll see it, it's almost like voting for or like ticking and just adding that on. In terms of the chat, feel free to obviously drop in and add any chat, tell us any burning kind of questions that are not maybe tech related. And that's what we use the chat for. So if you have questions that are more technology related, more to do with it, technology and education, or just general Q&A around what we do here at Your Ability, then please use the Q&A and we'll just use the chat in general. I'm going to try and keep the session kind of snappy enough as well. So we're just about 5 minutes in now. I was giving people a minute or two to jump on. We've just got over 100 people here right now, so that's great. What I will say is, like the session is being recorded, obviously. So if anyone does jump on later and has a question, has a comment, and you want to speak it out and you want to raise your hand and say that to me, then by all means you can come on, but just bear in mind that this session is going to be recorded as well. So hopefully that's making sense. Just going to grab a drink of water. We'll get cracking. All right, so I can see there's a few questions coming in there. Great. So there's a quick question in there. I'll get to a good few of these as well. And you'll see there's a little thumbs up question. So if anyone does spot any questions in there, then feel free to obviously, start that question. The more they get started, the more that I'll jump into. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. All right, fantastic. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen right now. We still have people that are sort of jumping in here, so that's brilliant. Well done for taking a bit of time out. I know, look, it's a Thursday, at least it's wet. That's always do I sort of look at these things, is that if this was a really nice evening, and it'd be far more difficult for me to get you to commit to come into a session. So well done. All right, let's go ahead and let's play this presentation. Okay. So what I'll do first is I'm just going to jump up this presentation. Nothing too major. If you've seen me before, then you may well know the presentation in some ways. All right, so let's get straight into it. Please continue to use the Q&A as you see fit. Please jump some of those questions that you have in there, and I really have allocated some time towards the end to answer as many of those as I possibly can. So what we're going to do now is this thing that's called a Zoom bomb, and I think we've done it before, and I know you might have done it on other ones. So really quickly, I don't want you to hit enter yet. If you're on your phone or on your laptop or iPad, just enter in where in the country are you? Don't hit enter now yet. I just want you to hit in whether it's Cork, whether it's Dublin, Galway, Mead, Kerry, whatever, like say to the town if you see fit. And we'll just give people a few seconds to do that. It's always a nice way just to get used to using the chat. So I know a few people have hit enter already. I just want you to hold off right now. So everybody that has it ready, hit the enter button now. All right. West Cork, Dublin, Killarney, Meath, Dublin, lots of Dublin, Waterford. Yeah, Galway, Cavan, Meath, Dublin, Kerry, Swords, great to have you. Limerick, Wicklow, awesome. Wexford, Cork, lots from Cork, Kilkenny, Castlebar. Like phenomenal. What a great spread around the country. Great that we can use this sort of a session. Killarney, got married in Killarney. Kind of a side note, Dublin, Laois, Carlow, fantastic. Look, thank you so much for taking the time out. We've well over 110 there now that have joined us. So I think it's time to kind of kick in. Belfast, fantastic. Hi Siobhan, how are you? Good to see you. West Cork, love it. Great that you're here with us. Brilliant to have such a kind of a cohort. I think we probably have a nice mix of parents and some educators as well, some teachers and SNAs, and that's fantastic to have. What I'm going to do before we can just jump into my particular session is I'm just going to pop up a poll right now, because I'm not I'll actually just stop sharing for a second. Okay, so you should see the first poll there if that's appearing for you. I'm just going to stop my share because I just want to. This is actually going to help me in terms of some of the things that I need to do, right? So the first poll, I just launched it. So there's just a few quick questions in there, like what describes you best? Is it a parent, primary, secondary, educator? And then what are those big challenges? Is it the actual technology and knowing what you need, or is it you know the technology and you need to know how to use it? And so I'll kind of use this will kind of guide me as I go through. So we'll just give it a few secs. It's just been up there now for a few seconds. Fantastic. Okay, so we've 80 plus people have taken it. So a nice sort of a mix there between parents, primary and secondary is kind of an even split. And educators, about 10% of the people here are educators. Great stuff, teacher or SNA. And in terms of the biggest challenge, like that's always interesting, both, right? So what technology do I need and how do I use that technology once I get it? And that for me is really important, because what I'm going to try and do is step through some of the technology first and foremost. Like buying that laptop in Harvey Norman's or buying that laptop in Curry's or looking at the newest iPad. What do I need? How do I buy it? What sort of spec do I need? And they do seem like really simple questions, but don't worry. Like the key thing here is that there's no silly question. And just because it's simple enough to me or somebody else doesn't mean that it's simple to all of us, and that goes for anything, so don't worry about that in the slightest. So well done, and thank you so much for taking that. That's most helpful. And I'll share the results there as well, so you can just get a kind of a sense check yourself. And let's jump into the main block of content. All right, fantastic, well done, and thank you for that. So I'm not going to look at any questions yet. I'm going to leave that till the end. I'm going to do this presentation first. All right, I think this should be good. Sarah, if there's anything that's not working, just ping me and we'll go from there. All right, so what I'm going to do here is, some of you have got our assistive technology guides. We've been developing these. We've upgraded these a little bit as well. So we're going to send that out and share that out afterwards. This session is recorded, so you'll get a copy of the recording. You got a copy of my slides and then anything that I looked at in this session. So I'm going to jump on in a few minutes and look at what the most optimal laptop might be, what the most optimal iPad might be, and what I think is the minimum spec that you should have on that device. And I'll drop those up here in a few minutes, but I'll share the links back with you. So you don't have to be taking vigorous notes here. And I'm conscious you might be multitasking like I often do when I'm watching the webinar, and that's okay too. So the things I'm going to cover, I'm just going to talk a little bit about my own background, but I'll flick through that pretty quickly because I think sometimes it's useful for parents. Sometimes you've heard it before, and who needs to hear that again, right? But I will look at the laptop, the iPad, and the D80 grant, or the technology grant. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of the D80 grant because it's a bit of a pain sometimes, in that we could talk about it for the whole hour or hour and a half, and we'd still be at it. But I will refer back to a blog that we have, any information that you need on it. And we'll talk about actually all well and good knowing what type of device, but which one does your child or the student that you're working with actually need? And we'll use this set model to look at that a little bit. Let's look at a small bit around reading, writing, both Windows and iPad. And just yesterday, actually, it was yesterday, the day before, Windows released Windows 11. So most people are working with Windows 10. This newest version, Windows 11, has come out just recently, and it's really strong. It's really powerful. It's really accessible, and there's loads of stuff built into it. And I think that's going to be a game changer over the next 6 months once people start using Windows 11. But don't worry about that right now. We'll touch a little bit on technology for maths, and that'll probably come up in the Q&A as well. And then I always like to refer back to some touch typing, some study skills. And if I don't get to that in detail, I'll send some of that material out as well. And I know that there's some people here that are on our parent course and on our education course. You might have seen some of this, but it's a good recap, right? And I do want to give time to the Q&A, because sometimes there's some really important things or a question that you're thinking about that a parent poses in a different way, and it's just an opportunity to get some information. So we'll try and snappily get through that, but make sure we're completely done and dusted. I'm saying 8:30 here, but in reality, it's going to be probably 10, maybe 8:45, 10 to 9, just because, but I'm going to give that time to the Q&A at the end. But if all the content should be covered in and around 8:30. All right. So for those of you who don't know me, then my name is James Nortridge, and I'm currently working here at UCC. So I'm actually in my office here as well at the moment. We have our offices in UCC for Your Ability. But I'm project lead for a thing that's called Inclusive UCC, or where we look at digital accessibility, and we look at how can we make the university more digitally inclusive for all students. So students with disabilities, mature students, international students, and that's a project that I'm heading up at the moment. And it's really, really interesting for me to be involved on that level. But it's phenomenal for me to be able to jump back and still be engaged and working directly with families and with schools with Your Ability. In terms of some of my experience, like I say, I'm working for and have worked previously for UCC. I've been a Marie Curie Research Fellow in the University of Massachusetts in Boston. So I spent just about 2.5 years there, and I also worked for Maynooth University. Actually worked for UCD as well in a past life again for about 4 years, but that's neither here nor there. I guess in terms of Your Ability, Sarah's in the background here as well, probably answering questions and jumping into some of your chats. But we run a kind of a lean enough team. We're really focused on delivering online courses and online materials. And for a long time, I did, some of you might have even attended, who knows, we did summer camps. I did 5 years of summer camps for kids with learning difficulties. UCD, we did it in UCC, Galway, Waterford, Limerick. We did it in Tralee another year. But a phenomenal opportunity for us to do that. And I was very hands-on, one-to-one, working with families, working with schools. I would go into school and give a training session. But the thing that kind of struck me was that I was only able to work with so many people in this kind of block of time, and so there was only so much impact that I was really able to make. And it was my time in America and seeing how online courses, all before COVID, right? We're so used of using Zoom and Teams and everything else now because of the last 1.5 years. But when we set this up, it was really we want to be an online supporter of schools. Let teachers and SNAs do this sort of training in their own time, but still get accredited, certified hours for doing this. And similarly for parents, our parents course is really this drop in and out. It's not that you have to sit through it for hours. It's what is that one thing I need to do for my child right now? And I've got 10 minutes on the couch at 9:30. And I know it all too well, having a 3-year-old there that very often takes over my laptop. So if you do receive random emails, it's obviously coming from Oisin and not from me. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we're at. And I love being involved in Your Ability. It is just one of those things that, for me, I'm quite passionate about doing. I'm quite passionate about being involved in, but I want to make as much impact as we possibly can. And that's, I suppose, the core goal of delivering a lot of our materials online. And we still do a few face-to-face sessions where we can fit them in. In terms of, again, just the kind of work that I've done and what I've done in America, I kind of switched gears when I went to America probably 4 years ago now. So we spent about 2.5 years there, and I worked a lot with kids that were nonverbal. So kids that predominantly kids under maybe 8 or 10, kids that were minimally verbal or nonverbal, that had ASD, autism, or possibly cerebral palsy, and worked with those kids to use technology or augmented technology. Or AAC type of technology. And it was really, really interesting because it probably put me out of my comfort zone in a way, in that I was really comfortable with the general learning technologies, the sort of stuff that I'm covering right now, but the things that, you know, you're probably most interested in. But for me, I wanted to kind of push myself a small bit as well and just get that experience of working with a different cohort of students. And it's brought us good things, right? With Your Ability, we won like best startup in UCC on the Ignite program. And then just before COVID last year, in early March, I think it might have been the 5th or 6th or something, we went and won United Nations Zero Project for Inclusive Education. So that was an opportunity for us to go and present ourselves and present what we do in Your Ability, you know, at United Nations. And it was just a phenomenal experience to be able to do something like that. And I think that we had that impact, I suppose. Yeah, so I suppose the key thing here, and I'm saying students, but I always refer to students in a sense, is that the session for me right here and right now, because everybody on this session, and I mean, there's 125 people here right now. The key goal is that everybody has a different journey. Like you're all coming at this a little bit different. Your students or your kids are a different age, different challenges, different school settings. It is immense, the differences. And so I'll do my best to cover as much as I possibly can. But the key part, you know, if you walk away from this in 45 minutes, it is to know, I now know where to get the technology and I know how to use it. And if I need more, then I can go back and find out more. But like if that is the goal and that is success at the end of the 45 minutes, then fantastic. So in terms of my own experience, dyslexia and ADHD, and you know, it's something I talk about a lot. I think it's important to talk about it. It's important for me to be a little bit vulnerable, especially when I'm dealing with kids, when I'm working with other students. You know, I think to be able to share that back and to share back the stories of, you know what, I still struggle massively in terms of spelling, in terms of my writing, in terms of my, you know, attention in general. A lot of those things are a daily struggle. And it's only because of the years I've put in that I've developed strategies and tools and everything to kind of help me get around those things. Obviously, technology is one, but it's not the only thing I do. I would say probably in the last 2 years, maybe since Oisin has kept us up for sleepless nights, is that I've probably been struggling a little bit more with my ADHD in a sense. And for years, like I never had a difficulty with it for a long time because I did loads of sport. So, you know, I was doing loads of running, gym, swimming, all that sort of stuff, cycling. Really, like I would exercise every day. I would eat well, I would sleep well. But I probably haven't been taking care of that particular element as well. And I really find the impact. I almost know on a morning if the ADHD is going to get me, you know, and there's not a whole lot I can do in that given day. It's just, I have to kind of surrender to it, knowing that I'm not going to be as productive or as tuned in on this particular day. And that's easy now for me to do. That's easy for me to say, you know what, today is going to be an off day, but I'll nail it tomorrow. And like, students don't have that opportunity in a classroom. Like, we literally as students pretty much have to be on every day. We have to get the same amount of work done every day. But I'm just at that stage where I know my body, I know my mind, I know when it's good or when it's not. And it's about that kind of those, I almost say daily rituals of exercise, food, water, like taking care of myself. All those things are really important. And it's important that we kind of distill that into our kids as well. So really quickly, I'll just kind of give you kind of a sense check of my last diagnosis at 19 was a reading age of 9, or more percentiles now, I guess, in terms of reading. My percentile at that age was in the 2nd and spelling in the 1st. And I would strongly suggest that probably hasn't massively changed all that much between now and then. That was only 5 years ago, of course. But yeah, like I really would question, I mean, marginally I think it's got better, but I use in my day-to-day, in my research, in my writing, I use lots of assistive technology to help me. I will get somebody to review my stuff. If I'm writing a research paper or a really important report, I'll get someone to proof it. And I'm at that stage where I'm like, you know what, I'll ask a colleague or I'll ask a friend to do it. But now I'm like, you know what, I'll outsource and I'll get someone to do it for me. Because I've written it roughly, but I mightn't have phrased the sentences perfectly. But I'll get someone to proofread that for me and to restructure the report ever so slightly. And that's the output. But again, that's possible now. It's not possible all the time, I guess. So let's jump into the technology. And I hope that little short insight into my own experience is useful, because I often, especially before COVID, I would have gone to schools and just talked to students that might have learning difficulties and just kind of share those experiences. And I often think it's important that we have some variation of role model, you know, and I have lots of memories of me being there, not necessarily wanting to even go on and do my Leaving Cert. There was the whole array of things that where I struggled in that primary and secondary school experience. And I suppose now it's kind of come full circle where hopefully I get some opportunity to give back ever so slightly. All right, so I'm going to jump into the technology now, but this might be a good segue to say, if you do have any questions or queries in around my own experiences, and before we jump into the technology piece, jump them into the Q&A. And so if you see a question in the Q&A that you think, God, that's actually what I was thinking, just hit the little thumbs up button, and then I'll jump back to a lot of those. If you are using the chat, probably not best to use the chat for questions that you want me to get to over the next block of time. All right, fantastic. Well, let's jump on. Let's just talk a little about the technology first before we actually get into the technology. So how do we pick the right technology? And I'm not going to talk too long about the frameworks or the research or whatever else. But there's a few of these kind of out there. There's a few ones that you could use that are quite useful. The SET framework is one that I use quite a lot, and I've done a bit of research on it. And I've worked with the lady who developed it, and actually, sadly, she passed away in the last 3 months. Actually, Joy Sabala, she was a fantastic lady. But to the point, I suppose, what she looked at was how can we look at the student and the environment, the tasks they have to do, and then think about the technology. Because all too often, and I see this all the time, people will come to me and that's always the question, is like, what laptop should I buy? What spec on the laptop do I need? You know, what type of iPad do I need? And that's all well and good if you know that the iPad is the correct thing for your child or your student. And we often do this thing of, like, you know, square hole, round peg, whatever that term is that we buy the technology and then we try to jam it in and make it fit. We try to make it work for that student. And that obviously doesn't fit the needs of that student in that moment. And so with something like this SET framework, which is really, really important. And as a parent, I'm not saying that you have to jump into this, but it's interesting just to be aware of what we need to think about when we're selecting technology. And all too often we jump into getting the technology first, or we apply for the D80 grant, or the school might say, you know, here's a laptop, let's try this with your son or daughter. And it may not be the perfect fit. So let's just briefly talk through these in a little bit of general terms. And so in terms of the student, it's about focusing on what are they good at? Like, what are their strengths, some of their weaknesses, or their challenges, if you want to say that word. So it's really about the student. So are they good at public speaking, but do they like to sing, or is there something that they're strong at? And so that when we think about then the tasks that they have to do and the tools that they're going to use, or the technology, we can bear in mind, you know what, actually, maybe he could give a PowerPoint presentation of his assignment versus having to write it. Like, it's just these small things that you'll think about. And then to do that, what type of technology would you need to support that? So that's the student. The environment is really important as well. And that is the physical environment. That could be home. It could be, do you have strong Wi-Fi? Do you have somewhere where you can use a laptop? Is the school an iPad or a laptop school? So if your child is going into secondary school, for example, and it's an iPad only school, then in reality, that probably is going to be a really key factor. It's going to be a really key factor. There's no point you getting a laptop and bringing it into an iPad only school, because it's going to be very, very difficult to work in that ecosystem of, you know, iPads. If of course, like, there's a physical need and the person has to engage only with a laptop, then okay, there's merit for it. But bear in mind that the environment or the ecosystem that we work in is really important. And like, it's not about making the school's life easier or the teacher's life easier, but in reality, that's going to make the parent's life and the child's learning experience better if it's more seamless. And I think that's just an important thing to bear in mind. In terms of the tasks, really what we're referring to there is, what is it that my child has to do? Like, what are we scaffolding? And when I say scaffolding, I mean, what is it that the technology is helping my child with? What are they helping get over? Is it DCD and it's poor, you know, fine motor skills, and so handwriting is an issue. They've either slow or poor handwriting, and so therefore we need them to be touch typing. And it's about thinking about the stage of education they're at. Are they going to be sitting in a junior cert or a leaving cert? You know, what are the tasks that they have to do in that block of time? And that's really important to bear in mind, because the difference between, you know, a 9-year-old with dyslexia or DCD versus a 15-year-old who's just doing his leaving cert, and you know, maybe has CP and has some other difficulty. Like there's just such differences there. It's really important to know what they have to do as well. And then we do refer to it as tools or technology. That is basically, what is the best technology that's going to fit the student, the environment they find themselves in, and the tasks that student has to do in that environment. That literally is it. That is the set model. And I know that there's 15 or 20% of teachers on this call, so good for you to know that, but also good for parents to know that if you are going into a school. And we get emails all the time to say, I'm meeting with the school next week. What type of technology should I be asking for? Well, this kind of hopefully gives you back a little bit of power to just even write down these 4 key things and jot stuff under them. And we can send some links out afterwards in emails in terms of maybe some more detail. So there's 3 key things that I'm just going to talk about before we get into the technology. And that is that technology feels scary or overwhelming. And it's interesting just to see from the poll a few minutes back, a lot of people aren't sure what technology they need. A lot of people are unsure of how to help and support that technology once you have it. And so I suppose sometimes that comes from being overwhelmed or just not sure, or, you know, parents will often say to me, well, I didn't use that in school. And sure, like, how am I supposed to know how it works, right? And it's kind of like, I often say this, it's like, I'm pretty sure tonight or over the last few days, you've picked up the Sky remote or, you know, the Vodafone remote, whatever it might be, and you've turned on something, you've hit record, you've recorded multiple series. Like, you don't really know how the Sky remote and the Sky box works, nor do you really care. But you know that it does something, it's functional, and it does what it needs to do. And it's sort of the same with the iPad and with the laptop. There's set things that you just need to do. You don't have to worry about everything. There's just core things that you need to help maybe get your child set up with if they're at a certain age. And I think that's the kind of thing here, is that forget about that level of overwhelm, because there's always going to be stuff that you're not going to know about. And I think that's really important. And I'm going to jump in now in a few minutes, and I'm going to show you some of the built-in features on the laptop, show you some of the built-in features on the iPad. And we'll see that, like, literally within 4 to 5 minutes, you can have a lot of those turned on, a lot of those set up. The other one that comes up a lot is that it's going to be really expensive. And I'm not saying that it's not expensive. Let's not beat around the bush. I do think when we look at laptops in a few moments that there is a necessity to probably pay, if it's a laptop, probably in the realm of, you know, $450 to $600. That's the sort of like guide price for a decent laptop, because we need a decent processor, we need decent spec. And you're probably talking $400 if it's an iPad, but then we do need to get a keyboard. I would always suggest getting a Bluetooth keyboard so that you can actually properly engage with typing on the iPad. But that being said, there probably is technology at home. There probably is technology in their pocket. You know, so if they have access to an Android phone or an iPhone or an iPad, even if it's a few generations old, there's some laptop at home that you could use. We could use Google Docs. We saw that in the last year and a half. I mean, okay, it doesn't have to be the newest technology, but it's really about just getting something and getting going. And I always really push this point. If you're on the fence of an assistive technology grant, do not wait until you get the grant. You know, like if you're on the sort of promise from a school or from the principal or from the CNO, do not wait until you get it. Like, start now. If you think an education psychologist or an occupational therapist has suggested in their recommendations that technology could be useful or is a necessity for this child, then start using whatever you have today, tomorrow. Like, what is the one thing you will take away from tonight that hopefully you can start using with your child or with the students you work with? I guess the other one that comes up an awful lot as well, and I always kind of laugh at it, is that like, students know more than me, or my child knows more than me about technology, and so God knows I can't be the one to show them. And that'll always be the case. You know, it's kind of one of those things that in terms of generations, like, you know, like I always have this thing that my dad really struggled with using the TV, and then he wouldn't dare use a smartphone because God knows. But I mean, the man is only 61, and I kind of struggle to think that, like, if he really applied himself, he probably could use it. But it's just, his mindset is like, sure, look, that's a new thing for young kids. And it kind of is similar again here. It's just about tapping into, you know what, I have to get my head around this, because this is what's going to help my son or daughter engage with the education. It's going to level the playing field for them. Whatever phrase you want to use there, this is what it's going to do. So this is just kind of getting over your own biases. You know, like we might call ourselves. I mean, I do say about myself that I'm constantly late for stuff, and I know Sarah's probably in the background laughing, but you know, it's I'm late for stuff because I'm like, oh, I'm constantly late. And part of that is maybe my ADHD, but like, you can't be blaming these things always either. There's, you know, you can put stuff in place, like you as parents, as educators, can jump on and can learn about this sort of stuff like you're doing right now, which is great. And you'll know about it. Like, you take our 1 hour course, you take our longer course as an educator, and you get on top of it, and then you nail it. And then you're the person in your school or at home who knows an awful lot about the technology that helps. And that's literally how it works. So I'm going to jump into some demos, which I think will be exciting. I'll come back to this in a second. So we'll jump into some demos right now. I'm going to stop there, stop sharing, and just have a quick look at some of the chat to see if there's anything I can do here really quickly. Yeah, so Sarah's probably staying on top of a lot of those. I can see some of the chat coming in there. Brilliant. And I'm just going to quickly see if some of the questions that are coming up. Brilliant. So there's a few questions that are opened up. Yeah. All right. So I just want to skim through the questions really quickly. I can see there that the questions, if you get a chance, jump into the Q&A, have a quick look, and just make sure that there's not a question in there that you'd like us to answer, and just hit that little thumbs up, and that'll obviously push it to the top, and so then I can answer that one first. So I'm going to cover some of these now in a few seconds, and this is really helpful. So my son needs AT, waiting for the CNO approval. He's in 4th class in primary. I'm guessing iPad is more suitable. However, secondary, he will go on to recommend a laptop. So like, that's kind of what I was saying. Would I better off to buy the iPad for now and invest in the laptop later? Well, yeah, great question. That's a really good question. And that's a good segue for me to look at what laptops are out there, what iPads you need to buy, and then we can kind of come back to your question afterwards, because I think there'll be a lot of people on this call that are like, do I jump now and go get it, or do I wait? And like, I can't say that enough, is that aside from money, and money is always important and budget's always important, but if you think and if you feel that the technology is going to help even marginally over the next 2 or 3 years, then the investment of that iPad, and bear in mind, like, you don't have to get a brand new iPad. You could get a secondhand iPad for, you know, probably for €200. Like, you'll pick them up. So I think there's something in that, but we'll come back to your question. I'm going to share my screen again. So as I'm doing that, I'll just give you a quick reminder. If you have anything for me to answer, drop it into the Q&A, and I'll get to that. I'll stop this guy now. Okay, so I'm going to just share my screen. So all I've done here again, and I try to do this regularly enough, because I think it's the most common place where people are going to be buying laptops, potentially. Now, if you are a school and if you're a teacher, principal or SNA, and you're involved in buying technology, and you have to go get these 3 quotes. Even sometimes I find parents are doing it, even though it's the role of the school. But the department do have a buying framework for technology. So in reality, if a school are buying a laptop, they technically don't have to get the 3 quotes if they buy via the framework. And they have 2 laptop choices, one kind of mid-spec and one higher spec. And the higher spec one is in and around €600 with really good spec, actually. So if you're a teacher, then you can kind of hit us up, and I can send that out there a little bit later. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to look at Curry's. I'm just going to show you what I would do if I was searching for something. So just come into Curry's, and I'm just using Curry's because I think it's generic enough. You'll get most mid-range laptops through here. So on the left-hand side, I have a reasonably good search. So I'm not worried about brands or makes as such, really. I'm just looking at the standard size. So what I'm going to look at first and foremost is just going to hit operating system. And I just have a quick thing to add here, is that Windows 11 is now out. That's fantastic, great. But the one that we don't want to buy, and I can't remove it from the selection, but Windows 10 S we just don't want to buy a Windows 10s because it will not allow you to add any software, and it just isn't a great place to be. So we're opting away from that for right now. So what we are going to look at is we're going to look at processor types. So just off the bat right now, I'm just going to hit two of them. I'm going to hit Core i3 and Core i5, just because it'll give us different choices in a few moments, and I'll show you why. So let's just go back in there, and I'll send this out as well. In terms of memory, for now, I'm just going to opt for 8 gigs. We'll just see what happens. And I think that should give us a good enough choice. And let's just hit the 499. And okay. So let's see now. So that's brought us back out of like what was hundreds and hundreds. It's brought us down to 20 pieces of technology that could be a possible option. And again, the one that I thought would come up has come up there. So this HP Pavilion, which is like a 14-inch screen, really good battery life, very good processor, decent hard drive. So not to get into the weeds of it, but basically an SSD is basically once you open the laptop, it just starts. Remember, like a number of years ago, you might have had a different, I won't go into it, but like a different form of hard drive. And, you know, sometimes you have to press it and it took like it was kind of churning. It would take 10 or 20 or 30 seconds to load up. These pretty much should just start. So let's just go ahead and look at this one here. I think either of these are really good. Let's just look at this one to start with. I think price point, it's sort of thereabouts. Again, like I'm not saying that an i3 wouldn't be bad, and an i3 would be fine, but the longevity of this device, it's lightweight, it's relatively small. I would say one battery charging would do the student all day, so they wouldn't have to bring their charger into school that given day. Like there's a lot of value in that, and I think there's probably value in going for something like this. But again, it's completely up to you. It's your budget in a sense, but this would be one of my main suggestions. And I'll drop the link in here in a second. I just want to look at the specification so I can show you. Okay, so again, like it's got the operating system we want. It's got a free upgrade to 11 if we need it. It's got the RAM. It's got 8 gig of RAM, which is really, really important. That is just basically the processing power of the device in the sense, or the speed that you can run it at. The screen is 14, which is super. And then if we just come down here a small bit, something that's more future-proofing your device is USB Type-C. So often, I don't have one here now in front of me. Actually, this is a USB Type-C. It's one of these really small, kind of rounded little ends. It's like a micro USB almost, but it's a Type-C. So basically, you don't want to buy a laptop that doesn't have one of those connections. That's. I mean, if you're buying one, if you have one that's there at the moment, that's grand. Don't worry about it. You can get some connectors. Like the ones that are common are those kind of slightly larger ones. They are going to be phased out over the next while, and this will become the standard. So it's just important to have that. It's just a small thing. And then very finally, it is the weight, which some people don't bother with, but I think is really important. So like this is going to be in a student's bag all day, and they're going to have to carry it around, bring it in and out. So 1.4 kgs is relatively good in terms of weight, and then it's got a 10-hour battery. You know, so that's a really good option. And I'll put that in the email that we send out the recording with tomorrow. Just to put out there, this is my general recommendation. I'm not saying that this is what you should be buying, but nonetheless, this would be a good device if you bought it. And of course, it's completely up to you in terms of budget and whatever works for you. So hopefully that helps in terms of choice. So now I'm going to jump on and I'm going to look at the iPad. Again, we have a blog post on this, and I've gone into a bit of detail in what sort of iPad would be good. What sort of iPad would work. And there's a few reasons that I look at this a lot. I mean, like, let's just look at the list of options that are there, right? So you got the Pros and the Airs, you got the new Mini, which is really nice as well. And if you're thinking about a primary school, secondary school student, there's certain times I might go for a Pro. And they are for students that are, let's say, Leaving Cert student are going into 4th or 5th year, and maybe they're big into art, or they're fantastic drawing, or, you know, and then like the ability to use the Pro or the Air, it has really good capacity to draw on it with the Apple Pencil. So good option. But that's really specific. For me, it's the standard iPad. Like, they brought out a new version again just most recently, and it's really good value. You know, like I have one here actually, just so I have one here that's pretty much brand, like that's a brand new one, and it's a fantastic piece of tech. But like, the price point is really good. So $399 at the moment. And the other thing to bear in mind, if your child uses any of this technology, you can claim the VAT back on anything that you buy. So again, Sarah, you might even grab the blog link and drop it into the chat, because I think that's really something that people don't think about. And you can go back 4 years. So there's 4 years capacity to claim your VAT. So that's probably something that's worth looking at if you're buying a new device now, or if you've bought it in the last 2 or 3 years. You can put in for multiple devices on the one claim, and it'll just come back as a tax refund. So that's something just to think about. So let's just go down here really quickly, and what I'll actually do is I'll step through buying, because that'll give you the spec. So if I just hit buy, just go for a standard color. Again, people will often ask about the size, and this is just the storage. Like, if your child is going to be taking massive amount of videos, then maybe you go for the larger one. But 64 gigs is quite a lot. When you think of the fact that you can store the stuff online, you can store it on Google Drive, or you can connect it to an iCloud account. I typically always recommend the standard 64. It's always what I buy as well. And then for Wi-Fi, you're obviously going to standard. And then if you want to go really fancy, you can add an engraving for free, which is a nice touch. And then if you wanted to add the Apple Pencil or keyboards or whatever else, but I typically don't opt for the Apple the Pencil maybe, but I certainly don't opt for the Apple keyboard. I'll show you a few keyboards there in a few minutes. But yeah, so like, I mean, all in, it's $399 and 23% of that is VAT. So if you were doing a VAT reclaim, then obviously you could pull that back, which would be a nice touch. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So what I'll do is I'll stop the share now for a split sec, and I'll just come back here and I'll see if that's making a bit of sense. There's a good few questions coming in. Thanks, Sarah, for popping that in there. Good few questions. I'm just going to look and see what's to the top. So Rachel's asking about a speech to text app. Fantastic. I'm going to go through that. There's 11 likes on that one. So that's brilliant. Just to make sure I'm picking up on anything before I go into it. Brilliant stuff. Reading apps. So there's a lot of sections around that sort of stuff. So I'll get into that. That's fantastic. That's good feedback to get. Okay, great stuff. So the other thing I'm just going to look at really quickly while we're here right now. Just going to go back and share my screen. I'm not going to go into this in any great depth actually right now, and I'm not going to take too many questions on it either because it comes up quite a lot. But that is the Assistive Technology Grant. So again, Sarah, you could even drop the link in there if you got it handy, just so that people have it and have access to it. We've done a whole review on it. I've done videos on it, and actually I've got a really good video on our parent course that we go through this in a lot of depth and a lot of detail, and similarly on the education. But we cover off what it is, what it's for, who's it's for, how you can apply, what you need, and then obviously the actual circular itself that comes from the department. Let's just see what else, like what's covered and what's not. And then I suppose the process. And the only thing I'm just going to say here is I think what's most important. Let me just go back to the top. So like, I suppose this is the most important point, and it's to yourself to look at it maybe afterwards, but that is before applying for the grant. Like, the grant is not a given, and like, I don't make these rules, but this is the game that we play within, and that is that there technically is 5 levels, right? So when you look at the circular, if you look on page 3 of that circular, these are the kind of core things that they say, and we just kind of paraphrase and ever so slightly here, but basically that all possible interventions and accommodations have been put in place for the student or the child, and that didn't work. Like, that didn't help or support. That existing equipment or technology within the school was tried, and it just doesn't meet the students' needs. So that's level 2. Level 3, the possibility of procuring the AT out of school funds has been explored. That's 3. 4, the student has been allowed to use his or her own equipment in school, and it doesn't meet their needs. That's 4, right? So So I often do wonder here, and we get loads of questions on the 80 grant. I'm not sure how many schools know about that, go through that, or CNOs that technically recommend it, or parents that are aware of it. And so there's lots of possibilities and options for using technology in education, but we sort of think that there's only one path, and that because we have a diagnosis and we have a recommendation from a specialist, it literally is just that. It's only a recommendation. And so the 80 grant is sort of this pot of money that's put in place to support technology. It's underfunded, there's no doubt about it. But I think if you look towards the end there, what's more important for me is that, and it is under review, it is up for review at the moment, but like we need to move towards this model of allowing students to technically use, if they have it, of course, is to use their own technology for their educational needs. And it's that sort of bring your own device or use a school device, and things have become so much more mainstream now that it's much more possible. And you do have to bear in mind that this particular grant is from 2013. So it's a little bit out of date, and it's certainly, I know it's something that they're working on to change. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, but the detail is there. Like, please read it in a bit of detail and make sure that, like, if you're a parent and the school says, well, we didn't get the AT grant, the money didn't, or like we just didn't get approved, and so therefore your child can't use technology. Like, that is not correct. It's important to say that just because you didn't get the AT grant does not mean that you cannot use technology in school. That's a really important point. And there's no connection or correlation between getting this AT grant, which really is just a financial bursary to the school. There's no correlation between getting this AT grant over here, and then as you move into secondary school or through secondary school, do your junior cert or your leaving cert. So no connection between race or reasonable accommodations in state exams and AT grant. Zero. Like, there's no connection, no correlation. I wouldn't even worry about it. What does come up there of occasion is if you get to junior cert or leaving cert and you only at that stage say, well, actually we would need to use a laptop for our exam, or an iPad for exams. Well, then you do need to prove that they've been using technology as their main method of engaging with the curriculum for the last number of years. That literally, so it's easy to prove that if they've been using the technology, but of course, if the child hasn't been using the technology, then that makes that application for race a bit more difficult. Now, of course, there's criteria that has to be met. It's dependent on your diagnosis, and it changes every year for race. And so I won't go into the key criteria, because that obviously is specific to the child. Okay, I hope that makes a bit of sense. I know that there's a lot in that, and we're certainly dropping that in. We're dropping that in there. The grant stuff is in there, so hopefully that's making a bit of sense. I know. All right, brilliant stuff. So some good questions coming in about text-to-speech apps. So I'm going to go straight in here and set this up. So what we're going to look at first is I'm going to look at some built-in stuff on the laptop. We're doing okay for time. We're going to power through. Just need to start this. So well done. Now won't be that time to get the coffee. Second there. Just takes a few secs. Just bear with me there a second. Sorry. Okay, I'll do that slightly different because that's not working there for me. Joys of technology. I'll send out a short little video on anyway afterwards as well. Actually, I'll do that right now. Sorry, folks. 1 second. So this is the time where the chat could start. The chat could start. Sorry about that. For some reason, I run Windows on a Mac device and it just will not start for me. So I'm actually just going to play a short video that I have that I think will do the exact same thing, but I just want to load it up here. So this video is just going to take it's about 4 minutes, and I just want to show you some of the built-in settings in a Windows device, and then I'm going to actually turn on my iPad and just will run through some stuff there as well. Okay, so just bear with me now for a second. I'll load this up. Hopefully that's okay for you in the background there, sir. Sorry about that. There we go. Joys. All right. Okay, so I think everybody should be able to see that. Yeah. Wait, just let me know if the sound is playing there. Just drop into the chat if the sound is playing. Okay, thanks. For some reason I don't know why that sound is not playing. So let's not worry about it. I don't want to waste people's time. So basically, I won't get into it now in terms of the Windows. I will send this video to you, and it's really to the point. What I basically do here is I just go in and show you some of the settings, show you how to do it. It's literally a 4-minute video, so it's nice that you can have it, take it away, and watch it in your own time. I think that's going to be most helpful, as opposed to you listening to me do it, which might make it easier. All right, let's cut that. So, and let's just look at one more thing here on the laptop. So I'm just going to look at some of the built-in reader pieces that are available. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to share. This is just a standard Word document. Lots of things that we can do in here that are built in, that are free, that are easily available. But if we come up here to dictate, so this is just kind of one quick thing. We'll do this on the iPad as well. Just in terms of general dictation. So if I just hit dictate here, this is an example of how we would use Microsoft Dictation to help us with any difficulty a student might have with handwriting, full stop, new paragraph. I use Microsoft Dictate quite a lot myself for both research work and administration that I'm doing at the university, comma. It helps quite a lot with my general grammar, full stop, new paragraph. As you can see from the above, it is well able to work with the Cork accent, exclamation mark, new paragraph. Okay, so it makes one or two small mistakes, but I think that's okay. And you know, like in reality, this is built in, this is free, this is something that you can use literally out of the box, which is super. The other thing that we should look at here is if we click on review, and then we click on read aloud. So we see this guy over here on the left, read aloud. So if I click on read aloud, what it's going to do then is it's going to bring up this little dialog box here. And I can just pop my cursor anywhere. I can pop my cursor here. I can hit the play button and it's just going to play back. It's just going to play that block of material straight back. You know, we can change the voices. We can change the speed and the tone that they speak at. And this is all pretty much built into Microsoft 365 or Office if you're using that. And that's just one example. We could do the same on Google Voice. We could do it on Chrome. So there's a few of those options that are available. And again, I'll give you the links how to do them. But this is literally out of the box. I turned nothing on there. I literally opened my Microsoft Word 365 version, and you'll always see this dictate option over here. What I will show you now as well is I've got editor. So if I click editor, This basically is Microsoft's version of Grammarly, or like, grammar and a spelling checker, which is really, really useful. And then I also have Grammarly myself. So this is a paid for version of Grammarly, which is a piece of software that will review. I've got to log in. But anyway, I'll send you the information on it. But Grammarly is a piece of software that will review the document, give suggestions on the sentence structure, the spelling, the grammar, the tone that's used. And I use it literally every day for all of my writing, both on my laptop and on my iPad. So certainly Grammarly is something that would be really useful and well worth kind of getting your hands on. Okay. So just let me pull up one more screen here. So that is in Office 365. If any questions or queries about that, like that piece of software typically will only work in 365. You can get it for free if you use it on the web as well. You can get a free version of Office online. You can use all those services. You can use Immersive Reader. I'll just see there, do I have it available? Because I think it would be useful to show people. Sign in. So let's have a look at this. So while I'm just waiting for that to load, what I want to just show people here is a lot of questions and queries. I can just see them coming in there in terms of selecting apps, selecting text to speech, voice recognition, all that sort of stuff. So a lot of you might have come across, or a few at least have come across, Call Scotland. Really good organization that are based in the University of Edinburgh. They do some really, really good work around literacy and numeracy and general communication. But they have all these guides, I guess, in terms of using technology. And what I really like here is their app wheels. Okay, so a whole range of app wheels, and like both Android, specifically kind of focus on dyslexia, but the crossover for DCD or for any learning difficulties is really common. They do it for Chromebook here as well. So I think this is certainly something that I think is worth looking at. And again, Sarah, if you get a chance there, you could drop the link to this particular website in. So I'm just going to open this up first so I can have a look at it with you, because I like to talk through it for a few seconds, because this is really core stuff. So in terms of writing, like the idea is that we start in the middle of this app wheel, and we kind of work our way out from there, right? And if you look at what they've done here, like if we take writing, they looked at typing. Okay, so it's tap typing, really good. Fast Typer 2, another good option. Word processing, like Microsoft Word, Pages, Clicker, which is another good one. Then they look at audio notes, and then it just steps out and gives 2 or 3 good options, good ideas. Note taking, same idea. Writing support, which we'll have a look at Voice Stream, which is really good. And then they get into some of these other options that are over along here in terms of, depending on the age, sentence structure, maybe different sort of customized keyboards, letter formation. So like it's much more younger student profile. Some really good ones here under scanning. So that is Presmo, that is Office Lens, Scene AI, that is SnapType, all really good apps. And the idea here is that you can hover over it, click on it, and it just brings you off to that particular app, and you can download it. So that's the idea of these app wheels. And I think, if you take anything else out of the night, then it's not necessarily about the specific app or the piece of technology, but it's more so just knowing that there is something out there that you can get your hands on it. And I'm trying my best to go through as much as I possibly can in a short space of time. But what we are doing is we'll make this material available to you afterwards. I'll send you some short videos on stuff that we have easily available. And then obviously you'll have access. A lot of you are on our course already, so you've access to jumping into some of our course material. Or if you're not, then you're more than welcome, obviously, to come and join us. So that's the whole piece about reading up here. Memory organization. So like some really, really good options and really good solid options that are available. Make sense? Okay, fantastic. So we're creeping up on time, but I think are people okay? I'm just going to jump on my iPad here. I just want to show a few devices. So just bear with me for a few seconds. So again, good time to drop into the Q&A there now. I'll do 10 minutes of Q&A. Just going to pop on my iPad so that I can share it with you. So I'm using actually this is an iPad Air. My apology, I thought it was the new iPad, but it's the newest Air version that's available. So it's a pretty good device. The main difference, I suppose, with the Air versus the one that I was recommending, I guess the main difference is the processor that's in it. So the speed of how it processes, and then aside from that, it's got finger touch, which is really good, and then also it's got just a little bit of, it can connect to an Apple, so like a customized keyboard that we can connect here, so we can dock it and it'll just connect to a keyboard. So there's a few differences, but nothing too major. All right, so let's jump into this. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and I'll go through a few iPad pieces before we take Q&A. So let's share my iPad. All right. So just go back there for a second. So at the moment, I'm running the newest version of iOS, which is iOS 15, which came out probably about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago or something like that. So it's yeah, it's a really good version. It works really well. I've got a lot of apps on this, some that you saw on that app wheel a few moments ago. I know that somebody there keeps raising their hand, and I'll try and get to that person towards the end if that's okay. But yeah, so let's jump into this. And to start the ball rolling here, what I will do is I'll go into settings first. So we won't talk about any apps off the bat. Let's jump straight into some of the settings. Conscious that we're kind of coming up on time, so if people do need to jump off, please do. This session is recorded, and on top of that, I will send out videos to how I change some of these settings. I have short 3 to 5 minute videos that are recorded that we'll share out afterwards. So let's just jump ahead and let's just go into settings in general. A whole array of things again that we could do in here, but I'm just going to focus on accessibility. I'm going to focus on things that are going to make writing and reading easier. And a lot of people were asking about, earlier about a text-to-speech app. Well, a lot of this stuff is built in. So it's built into the iPad, it's built into the laptop, into your phones, but because of the latest release, it's got even better. So on the left-hand side here, we're just going to come down. I know you can't see exactly, but if you roughly have a look there, you will see that I have an accessibility tab. So I've tapped on accessibility. Fantastic. Again, they've nicely broken this down now in the last while. So we have vision, we have motor, physical, we have hearing, and we have just general. So what we're a bit more focused on, I suppose, for now is that there's so many things, again, that you could do here. If I was working with younger kids, maybe I would turn on display and text size and just make it a little bit bigger, a little bit easier for them to see. Spoken content is the one that we're going to go into in a few seconds. The first one there, voiceover and zoom, are particularly for vision. So don't turn on voiceover, because it just is a different environment, and it'll control your device slightly different. So you're not to worry about that. The only one really here I want you to worry about right now is spoken content. So we're going to spoken content, and if it is turned on, then great. You're going to hit speak selection. We just want to have speak selection turned on. We want to have speak screen turned on. So they're the two kind of core ones you want turned on. We're going to be using speak selection a bit more, and that's the one that's more useful, and it works a lot better for people. In terms of some of the general settings that I like to have turned on, and about halfway down there, you'll see highlight content. Highlight content as it's spoken. And that's something that's really useful and really important, and something that's probably worth doing. And that'll be very similar to a lot of the text-to-speech apps that you'll see, and I'll show that in a few seconds. Then we can select voices. So there's a massive array of voices available. If we go into English, by default, it might be set up as a US or a standard English or Irish voice. Just come down maybe 3 or 4 jumps there. You'll see India, and then you see Ireland. There's the standard Siri voice, and then there's the Moira voice. And when you're installing or selecting a voice, I want to just make sure, don't do this right now if you're following me along. Do this afterwards, because it'll just take a little bit of time. It'll take a bit of bandwidth to pull down as well. But there's a standard version, and then there's this enhanced version. So I just want you to go for the enhanced version, which is going to work much better. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. I'm just going to step back one or two. So now we have this turned on. Fantastic. So let's just go ahead and let's just open up notes. And I'm just going to either search for it, which would be just pull down from the top, one finger, just pull down from the top. Okay, so I'm just like, just pull down. And then I can just do a little search. I can type in, or I can use up here in the top right. See the microphone there? Just hit the microphone. But I'm just going to hit notes. So in here, I'm just going to write a note. And this is something that we can easily use. So just tap somewhere, keyboard appears. I could type obviously, but I'm just going to use dictation. This is an example of how we would use dictation on an Apple iPad full stop, new line. As you can see, it picks up my voice pretty well, comma, even like we said earlier, for an awkward Cork accent, exclamation mark, new paragraph. This isn't learning my profile. It's not anything that I trained over time, comma, it just is picking up the accent as I speak, full stop. You will see, or at least hear, comma, that I am pausing, adding punctuation as is needed, and ensuring that I think about what I say before I say it, exclamation mark, new paragraph. Okay, so again, like it might have made one or two small mistakes there, nothing too major, I feel, but picked up lots, you know, and I used both. What's really important here is I used dictation and I used commands, you know, so I said like paragraph, new paragraph, full stop, new line, exclamation mark, a few of those kind of common things. And again, like, I think what's core here is that we do get students to use this. This isn't going to work in a classroom environment. Let's just be clear. Like, this isn't going to be something that they can use in a classroom of 26 or 24. It's more so something that we can use at home or in a relatively quiet area when we're doing homework or we're stuck for that one word or that sentence. And you can see there that you could easily speak out a few paragraphs. But to get that now read back, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to tap on it. So just one finger, one tap, and drag. So just pull and drag. And now I get a number of options here. So now I get these number of options. I can copy and paste, I can cut, but I can also speak. So if I hit speak, it's just going to ask me the language, because sometimes I won't go through it here now, but you can change the languages that you get the content spoken back in. And this is all built in out of the box. I've changed nothing, just turned on a few built-in settings for dictation and for reading text back. So you might be hearing that, but I'm not sure if it's playing for some reason. There's something going on with it. Don't worry if it's not playing. You see there that it's highlighting. So you can see that it was highlighting in yellow and the word that was being read was in blue. And obviously it's just using the Siri or the built-in voice to read it back to me. But again, this is all built in, really nice option. Any questions on that, then just drop them in there and I'll try and come back to them. So in terms of some of the apps that I would use, this is a really nice reader app. It's Voice Dream Reader. Okay, so I'm just going to open up their generic. They just got a generic enough book that kind of helps you in terms of using it. But you could easily open any book, right? So in terms of adding a book, on the left hand side here, you'll see add book. So I could either scan a page, I could scan a document or a worksheet, have it read back. I can open the file browser on the device. I can use Google Drive. I think it also connects. It connects to Bookshare and it connects to Dropbox if that was something that you wanted to use. So basically, we can access the materials on this Voice Dream Reader. It's a little bit more expensive than most, but it's my absolute go-to in terms of apps. And again, I'll share the video with you afterwards. I've done a little quick video on how to use this, and it's covered in our course as well. But we come in here and you can see straight away it highlights the sentence. It's changed the font type of any book to the dyslexic font, which is really keen, really useful. So if I tap down a few lines here, it'll start reading. So let's just see. Sorry. So you see here at the bottom, and it's hard for me to kind of point in, but you got the little play button at the bottom. You can fast forward. You can run through. You can see how long it's going to take. On the top right there, it's got the large A and small a. If I hit that once, again, lots of things that I can change here in terms of the font, the spacing. So if I go font and spacing, I can change the font myself. I can select the font, which is just kind of a nice touch. If I go to advanced visual settings, so this is a really nice tool as well. And this is, you see here, lines visible. And that's an interesting one, right? Because now I can see everything on the page, but if I hit 3, So now I just see the 3 lines that are most important, or the 3 lines that are being read at that given moment and that I'm hearing. So again, just think about the student that gets slightly distracted, then this is a really useful read back option. Does that make sense to people? I know I went through a lot there, but I'll share that as well afterwards. The other one I just want to show here, because I do talk about it a lot. Let's pick that. Okay. is snap type, and this might keep. Okay, yeah. Sorry. So snap type hasn't been updated most recently. That's okay. Snap type is a really interesting one. It basically will allow you to take a picture of a worksheet and have that worksheet annotated on or written on there and then, and that's a really interesting option. But Apple have actually added stuff that are built in. So I'm going to go back to notes once more, and I'm just going to set up a new note top right there. Okay, so I'm just going to get I don't know, these are actually maybe I should get somebody with the best question tonight. We'll give them a your ability nice keep cup. But anyway, I just keep cup was next to me here, so I'm going to take a picture of it. So the idea here is that you see up here in the top right, there's a little camera icon. So if I tap on the camera icon, I know not only can I take pictures of use photographs that are on my device or upload photographs, I can scan a document. Okay, so it's an actual PDF scanner. It's literally built into your device. This is on your phone as well. So if I hit scan, okay, so like you can see here now, it's trying to pick up that box. I know this isn't the best example. Let me do it down here, might be better. Okay, so you see that there? It's kind of homing in on the box. It's automatically done it. It's pulled it up. Let me tap on it. It literally just took a picture of that there straight away. So I could crop it in if I needed to. I'm just going to hit done and save. So now this is a nice scanned document. I could share this with somebody. Like if for example, your child was doing some homework at home, and there was a requirement, to fill out a worksheet, and they did it by hand or whatever else, or else you wanted to bring it in here, and then you wanted to annotate on top of this. Now we could really get into the detail. We could jump into this, and we could change the color and the layout. I could crop it and I could edit it. Like I could hit mark up here, and now I could actually start writing on top of it. Like if I was using an Apple Pencil, or I could actually type if I hit the 3 dots. Sorry, if I hit the plus, and I hit text, and I could drop a bit of text there. So there's just so many things, I suppose, and I'm quickly kind of doing this now, but like there's so many things I could do there. I could draw on top of that piece, I could share it, and now I could actually share that piece out as a scan. If you need to send this back to the school, you can see there at the top it says Wordles. I just need to change the icon. It's a PDF document. And then I could either airdrop it, or I could send it by email. I could drop it into my Google Drive or my Gmail account. Or of course I could print it if I had a printer that was connected. So that is literally on the iPad. Like, that is technology that's there, that's ready for you to use, that's really accessible to students. So they're just 2 or 3 kind of small ones that I think are really, there's a whole array of ones that we'll get into the detail. Like Photomat is a really nice one there as well. I'll send out a lot of this stuff so you have it. I don't want to be like beating down the door so that you can go through it. I can't use Snap Type, it's unusual. Let's just see if there's anything else there that would be really good for you to use. Yeah, like, I mean, there's like the voice dream reader is another really good option. And I can create a new document. So again, same idea, gives me this built-in writer where I actually can write. I can use the dictation, but you see here, you get the little red icon on the bottom right. It's got a built-in reader that will read back, and it's really kind of an advanced reader. We can edit it on the left, we can add headings, we can add spacings, and on the right-hand side here, that is, like it's kind of almost like Grammarly in a sense, but lots of options within this app. Again, not the cheapest apps, but there's a suite of apps. I think there's 2 or 3 under the VoiceStream brand, and they're probably, maybe 10 to 20 euros max each. But like for 10 or 20 euros, you're getting an awful lot, and that's a once-off payment. So I couldn't recommend that enough. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. I'll stop sharing there now. Stop sharing. All right. So now, thank you for taking a bit of time out to listen to me for the last hour and a half. And I was probably talking at a hefty Cork pace. And I hope, so somebody asks there, is this feature only available on iPad Air? No, it's not, Dee. This is available on any, and I see now that Sarah just answered that question. So thank you, Sarah. Right, I'm going to get into Q&A, and I'm going to just start answering as much as I possibly can in as much time as I can, which would be great. All right, so there's a number that have been answered and there's a number that are open. Please, can you suggest, so this is Rachel's question that came up earlier and lots of people wanted that. So hopefully you saw that. So the text-to-speech app, I would be suggesting the built-in first and foremost, the free out of the box, which works phenomenally well. And then I would be jumping on and using something like Voice Reader. And that is the best option for any student. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's that one done. Daughters in 5th class and recently diagnosed, okay, with dyslexia, dyscalculia, what tech software would be best? Laptop, reading pen. So 5th class, recently diagnosed. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm just thinking, picking through some of these answers. And actually, while I'm doing that, I'm gonna, as I'm pulling some of these up, I'm actually just going to push in another poll while I'm answering some of these questions. So this is just more about selection tools, and I'm really interested because I answer these emails and these questions every week, and we're working on something in the background that hopefully will make parents and educators' lives easier. So to answer this question, in terms of the best reading app, I think I've done that already for Katrina. In terms of a daughter with 5th class diagnosed with dyslexia, dyscalculia, and tech software, that'll help. I mean, if it's dyslexia and if spelling is a big issue, you know, maths obviously is the one that's easily solved, but there are a number of apps that you could use. There is a thing called Equatio, which is a really good app. Well, it's an online maths speaking software. So you can speak in the maths and you can, and from there, you can jump in and you can engage with maths formulas as the student gets older. But I'm just going to go out on a limb here, and I'm just going to say that for me, if it's not DCD, if it's not really strong difficulties with handwriting, I would be more inclined to use an iPad, just because the level of creativity, the level of engagement, the flexibility of using it, but just make sure that you get a Bluetooth keyboard and you get it set up well, and obviously just run it by the school just to make sure that you know that they're okay with you doing something like that. So I think I've answered Katrina's. So my son needs AT, waiting for senior approval. He's in 4th class in primary. I'm guessing the iPad is more suitable. However, secondary, yeah, so we saw this, will be recommending a laptop. Should I buy the iPad now? I mean, I think I probably answered that insofar as that you could, I don't know the level of detail. So you're waiting the senior's approval. So that might be that whatever you submitted on that application, or maybe they'll go for at that stage, that may well be a laptop. So to have the iPad and have it at home, have it something that you can use for homework, I think that would be phenomenal. That for me is really where it's at. And I think if you get a chance to do that, then I think that's what I would jump into. I'm just going into that poll. Thank you so much for doing that. So my child is 13 and finds it difficult to write out his exams. Do you have any technology to help him with handwriting? Also, his Irish mark hasn't improved. Spelling is still an issue. He won't get an exemption because, yeah, I suggest. Okay, so again, I don't know the exact diagnosis, but I mean, there's no technology per se to support with handwriting. However, if we felt that you know, a word processor would be something that he could use in that situation, then that might be something that we might jump on and look at. But like, is he touch typing now? Is that something? And I don't know if it's, yeah, him. Is he touch typing? Has he learned how to touch type? Has he engaged with it yet? You know, I think that's so important. And he's 13 now. So like, in terms of state exams, if he is going to get reasonable accommodations, more than likely they're going to push towards using not a scribe, like not somebody who writes for you, not somebody who reads it to you, not like dictation software you speak it in, actually typing. They'll they'll first and foremost, and the easiest option to get will be the word processor. So I think it's really important to kind of put that in place. The Irish is another difficulty. There's not anything really like that's going to massively improve that outside of general Irish apps. And there is an Irish readback function that's going to come available in the next, I would say in the next 12 months. So all the universities of Ireland have put money towards developing an open source Irish language text-to-speech reader, because that actually is one of the biggest difficulties that we have, is that we have these English readers who are fantastic, but for Gael skulls and for kids that struggle with Irish, we've no access to an Irish Gaeilgeoir voice. So that's something that's going to be good. So, and again, if anyone does need to jump off here enough, then yeah, please do. Obviously, the session is recorded, and thanks for being here. So if purchasing an iPad for a child that has the technology recommended in the report, how frequent can the claim difficulty from revenue and buying a new? Yeah, like that's a really good question actually. Like how frequently can you purchase? To be honest, I haven't seen anything that's specific. The application form is a little bit vague, and it's like just put in the diagnosis of disability, or why it was required, what was needed for. Sometimes I see parents that might just put in the if you have a recommendation list from an OT or an education psychologist, put in just a one-page scan of that page with the application. But I've never seen it being refused or being queried. Because look, it is honest, and you can go back 4 years, and like I see a few people that would put in for a laptop and an iPad and whatever they bought over that block of 4 years that potentially could be used for their kids. So it is something just to look at a little bit more in a bit of depth, but certainly something that's worthwhile. So I just want to dig into this a little bit more. Sarah, how are we doing for time? What time did I say I was going to finish? I'm conscious of people's time, right? So it's 6 minutes to 9. So how would I go for another 6 minutes? How's that? We'll go till 9 o'clock, and we can kind of start wrapping up then at 9. Okay, so for anyone that is jumping off, again, thank you very much. I'll send out the details after. The one thing I will say actually, and I haven't said all along, is that we have our parents course and our educators course. They're there if people want them or if people need them. Because this is Dyslexia Awareness Week, we obviously will be offering a pretty good special. So I think we have €50 off the price of our parent course. And if in a few minutes, Sarah, if you get a chance, you can even drop it into the chat if people are interested. But don't worry, we'll send it out anyway in a few minutes or in a few days. So daughter 16, finally diagnosed with dyspraxia, recommend assistive technology. What's an offer for her out there, please? She struggles with maths and writing. I mean, and I see that Sarah is actually typing the answer to that, but just to pick up on that, like she struggles with maths and writing. So this is one of those things where we might use the set model and think, okay, we know the kind of difficulty of the student. You've given a rough age bracket there in TY, like a great year to actually get into technology, get on top of touch typing first and foremost, get on top of using the laptop, move away from the writing. I would look at the criteria for race maybe next year and see, does she fit the category for that? Is something that you could look at. But I wouldn't overly worry about the maths insofar as like there's not a lot that technology can do, because it's not going to improve, and it's not something you won't be able to use some of the AI software that is available for supporting maths in maths exams. So that's a piece that'll just have to be worked on outside. So I would pick up on the things that you can control, the things you can work on. And for me, undoubtedly, that would be the handwriting and moving towards, making that process a little bit easier for her, I would say. Some schools use funds to buy Chromebooks. What do you think of these? I think they're really good. Like I love this, the idea to use Chromebooks. My only issue is that if a Chromebook has been used, then we're solely reliant on the Chrome environment. It's pretty much like using the Chrome web browser to engage with the technology. Now some of the more recent Chromebooks are coming with software as well available, with a kind of a small external hard drive or a small hard drive built in, maybe like 50 or 100 gigs, so that you could store stuff offline. Because if they're using it on a day-to-day basis, and then they go home and you don't have Wi-Fi, or you're somewhere where there's no Wi-Fi, then it's a lot more difficult, obviously, to connect and do work that you would normally do in a Chrome environment. So yeah, like they do come in a bit cheaper. But what I will say is like they're getting more expensive actually, which is kind of interesting. And you're probably a little bit limited in what you can do. But if it's available, I'm all for Chromebooks. It's just not one that I overly recommend. So my son has speech to text technology. However, he has a speech impediment Okay, so this is thanks you for raising this one. This is a great one. So if we've tried so far, it doesn't work. Like, thank you so much for bringing that up. That's a really important question. I'm not sure if the person is still live or not, but basically in terms of speech impediments, what I demonstrated tonight, what's available on the iPad, what's available on a laptop, generically built in Microsoft Word, they will not work. We might as well just call it right now. They will not work for your son in this instance. What we need to do is we need to move then towards something like Dragon Naturally Speaking, and maybe you've tested that before, but I know that I could get that work. Like, we could get that working with any child or any student that struggles massively. Like, there is no doubt in my mind that we could make that work. I've used that with students that have minimal output, and we've made it work. So it's just about getting the training. If you are interested in using and really getting on top of Dragon, I don't really do it anymore. It's not something that I can offer that one-to-one service, but there are people that I know will do it. And if you're looking for training in software, there's actually a fantastic chap here in Cork. Mark, he's second in, I know just gone, my brain is a bit fried, but he's working in NTU as the Assistive Technology Officer. And Mark is fantastic. Drop us an email, I can give you his details, and he is just a star. He'll get you set up with assistive technology specifically that you might be struggling with in those instances. School are telling me not going to encourage use of assistive technology, as my son may not be allowed to use it in exams. He's in first year. He could become over reliant on it and to write and then not be able to use it. I mean, I always want to take a screenshot of this one because I swear to God, if I see that question once, I see it 100 times, and it's one of the most. And I'm not saying this about you, Moira, but like, it's just one of the most frustrating ones that I get back from school sometimes. Like, if we think that technology is going to help a student right now, and I'm not saying that technology should be the only way, it's just part of the learning. It's part of the toolkit. It's part of what we do. And it's going to get the child to engage. It's going to allow them to feel better about themselves. Like, it has all those added benefits. Like, Jesus, just because we think it's not going to work in, I don't know, 3 years time, then, oh Jesus, we're not going to go near it now. Like, that for me is just not good enough. That I cannot, and I get really up my high horse with this, but like, you need to push back on them ever so slightly. And it's not to say that he's going to get lazy. And some people will say that to me, oh, he'll get reliant and lazy and whatever else. He won't if it's set up in a way that he's seen it as supporting. So I don't think you mentioned he's diagnosed, whatever there, but like, if it's something that you just have to get on top of. I don't care. Like, it's something that's going to be part of the learning. He might use it a small bit in school. He might use it a lot for study. He might use it for writing up notes that night. Like, there's a whole array of things that the technology could do for him that would make his life a little bit easier. And it's not that he'll become over-reliant, and he'll become supported, and he'll become scaffolded by that technology. And like, this carry on of like, we don't know if he's going to get in race. Now, of course, there's these clear cut cases where you're barely within the, not even with the criteria, but you're barely within the diagnosis criteria of dyslexia, well, let's say, or DCD. Then, okay, there's a case in point. It may not be allowed in an exam, but like, we have to then build towards just working it in to his day-to-day, to his daily, weekly experience of engaging with the learning. Anyway, I'm going to stop there because I could talk about it for the evening. My child is dyslexia, struggles with writing, spelling, reading. What technology apps would you recommend to use? He's in national school. So I think, Elizabeth, I would have covered off a lot of those. And I know you put in this question a bit earlier. So I think we covered off a lot of those ones earlier. So in charge of AT in an iPad school, great. OTs keep recommending laptops. Yeah, like, I see that all the time. I don't know what your first name is, but it's P. Hogan. And we want kids to use iPads for obvious reasons. So like that, I kind of got to that point earlier, right? So like, you'll often see that the recommendations are generic. They'll come from, and I work a lot with OTs and speech and language, but they're not using something like we talked about at the start. They're not using that set model to say, Jesus, what actually is the environment like in the school? And what's the reality? Like, am I going to send a student in here with this 14-inch or 15.6-inch laptop, and all the other kids are accessing their books and they're engaging with their materials on an iPad? It just, like, the ability to be able to engage with the iPad is probably there. What they should be recommending possibly is Bluetooth keyboards, full-sized Bluetooth keyboards. Like I just have one in this box actually, but I didn't really show it. But this is like a tactile keyboard. Depending on the age, these are larger buttons so the students can engage with them. Is set it up ergonomically, like maybe have a stand for the iPad, and the iPad might come through the school, but the other part could come from the recommendation of the OT. So hopefully that's helpful. So son is 8, has dyspraxia. What class do you suggest starting to use AT? Another great question, Eileen. I would say there's no hard and fast rule. It's kind of like, it depends on their level. Like, I mean, if the literacy is really poor and the numeracy was really poor, then we'd start it earlier because we need to scaffold earlier. If if everything being equal, I would probably say 3rd, 4th class. It's that sort of like start introducing it, fun games, engaging games, and kick off that touch typing early, 3rd, 4th class. Like that's where that sort of stuff has to happen. Because what happens is if we introduce it at a secondary school stage, and that's still okay to do, but we need to start it a little bit earlier if at all feasible. So start that stuff earlier if possible, and make it fun, make it part of the sort of engaging piece. I'm going to go for 2 more minutes and then I'm going to wrap up because there's loads of questions. I think we went through a good few of these. My daughter's in secondary school, organizing laptop for is causing a lot of frustration as she doesn't feel it's fit for purpose. Can we ask the school for a replacement? So the school are organizing this device. I guess I don't know if it's not fit for purpose because only you know that best, but I suppose if the spec isn't up to scratch, if it's not working for, like, there'd be a whole array of things that we'd look into, but use that sort of set model thing a little bit. Actually, it might be no harm is to say, well, this is the recommended spec that's coming from this assistive technology expert. This laptop has X and my daughter needs to do these particular things. How is that piece of technology or that tool actually going to help her do that? Sometimes it's just about being logical because, like, and no disrespect to teachers or to OTs or speech and language, but like this stuff changes quite a lot and it's really hard to stay on top of it. Like, it really is really difficult. And I think because what I often see is like, well, this is the way we've always done it. It's that whole thing of like twaddy, like this is the way I've always done it. So therefore this is the way I'm going to continue doing it. And that just doesn't cut it for me. Like, it's just about finding out what is best practice. And that's like, look, you're here. That's why you're learning. I'd love to have your lesson on Microsoft and so on. Technology, Lorraine. Yeah. I'm just going to look at 1 or 2 more. Can you recommend a pen for the Chromebook? I don't have one off the top of my head, so that's something we can come back to. Okay. I think we've kind of, let me see there. Oh yeah, there's a few. Where would you purchase that Bluetooth tactile keyboard? Thanks, Helen. I'll actually pop it up. I'll pop it in the email that I send out tomorrow. This is another one that's actually lovely. I cover this sometimes. I just didn't get time tonight. All the stuff that I'm kind of like running through, I suppose, we cover this in great detail on our parent course. And like, we obviously send off the links, but this is a phenomenal piece of technology. Younger kids, you can quite see it there. Lovely tactile piece, quite engaging. The other ones, like, they're a little bit expensive. They might be €80. Like, they're actually not too different to an Apple device. But if you are getting one, make sure it's tactile. What's the best touch typing app for a 10-year-old? I mean, Sarah's jumping in there with that one, Sinead, but I would say going something like TTRS or going like Nessie Fingers or going to the generics like the BBC Dance Mats, just to get him engaging, get him, like, he or she, get him working on it and enjoying it. I'm a massive fan of TTRS, but and there's those people that do that as well. Read and Write Gold and Equatio give free access to their products for teachers. Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for popping that in. That's a great one. Like, I recommend that all the time. And dare I say it, even if you're not a teacher and you put in that you are a teacher, there's a strong chance that they might actually send it out to you. And they're really, really good to deal with. TextHelper, the company that developed Read and Write. So well worth looking at that too. Loads of questions. I mean, we could actually spend, I wonder, Sarah, is there some way that we can pull down these questions and just looking there, and I'll try and answer them afterwards. I don't know. I'll see if I can do that. I'm not sure. Maybe there isn't. Yeah, maybe there is some way to do that. And actually, I know we said this before, Sarah, but like maybe before Christmas, maybe in November after the break, what I might do is just jump on and just especially for the people that are on our mailing list or the people that are on our course, I'll just do a Q&A session. like literally like a Q&A session, because there's like umpteen questions there. And so we spend the hour and a half milling through. And I know it might be particular to you, but that might be actually a good way. Can I claim for the C pen? Yes, you can, Kate, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Sorry, some lady there, Mary, she asked me to cover Immersive Reader. I didn't get a chance to do that, but I should have got around to that. That would have been really useful. Yeah, there's a bit of talk about the reading pens and then general keywords, but I'll send some of this stuff out. So that's sort of a lot of it, I think, isn't it? I think that's what I really was here to cover, and what I really kind of wanted to get through. Please, if you're interested in the parent course, then fantastic, jump on and give it a whirl. Like we're offering we're offering actually 50 euros off the cost of it now. So it's 99 euros to access to 20 hours of content, but iPad, laptop, lots of hours of content with me, and really bite-sized videos, 7 to 10 to 12 minutes. We try to put as much into that as we possibly can. So hopefully you'll find that of use. I know Sarah has shared a link there a few times in the chat. I'm just going to jump up into the chat there now for a few secs, see if there's anything else. Yeah, so we'll send out the details. This has been really helpful, really good for me to be involved and to give as much back as I can. Like I often love doing the sessions, and Sarah's on the other side now, ready to kill me. But yeah, we could go for another hour and a half. But the idea here is more so to show you what's out there, show you what's available, show you that it doesn't necessarily have to be what you're being told. It's like anything. Just jump out there and question it. Like and again, no disrespect to the schools, but I think sometimes it's up to parents not to say, what should my child be using? It is to say, well, I went on this webinar, this is an option, could we look at it? Like, go to the school with a solution, go to them with a few options. And I guarantee you, teachers will appreciate that. Not necessarily saying, this is what you got to do, but more so saying, these are two options, could we try these? I'm going to try this at home first, we'll see how it works, and then we'll bring it into play. Again, going with a solution, going with one or two options, that's obviously going to make life an awful lot easier. So again, I think all your emails are there. I'll send out the stuff tomorrow around the parent course. And what I'll drop in as well is, if you enjoyed the session and you're not going to buy the parent course, that's okay too. Or you run it, fantastic. I love having you guys here. Is to jump onto our Facebook page, facebook.com/yourability/review, and just maybe give us a quick review, and I'll just chuck in the link there, and that literally would be the icing on the cake, as they'd say. I think that's sort of it, Sarah. Have I covered everything? I think I have. I think we could go for like, when I kind of get into the swing of things, we could go forever, but obviously you need to get away. All right, so well done. And I know there's a lot of new faces, and there's a lot of people that I've seen that I've been dealing with a few years, which is just superb. And I love having the opportunity to work with families and students. Like, I'll tell you a quick short story, and then I'll finish on that. So we did summer camps for 5 years. I've been kind of involved in this for a number of years, and now it's, like I said, I'm working here at UCC, and it's great to have the opportunity to be here too. But I was walking across campus on Tuesday, and I met this second year student who I had helped and supported when he was in second or third year. So it's hilarious, like, to see some of the people that I helped way back when, and I see this strapping lad like walking across campus, and obviously, living a good life and doing well, and really getting on top of it. And they're the kind of stories that make the difference to kids. And like you saw my test scores there at the start, like I was the first and second percentile for reading and writing. And it was a different time, but without technology now, I certainly wouldn't be where I am. And this age-old thing of like, you have to be able to spell and you have to be able to read. I can read, but I listen to books. That's reading. Like, you just need to think a little bit outside the box. We need to constantly push those boundaries. And as a parent, obviously, your best place to do that for your child. And the teachers that are on this session are obviously doing some phenomenal work as well. So well done. So listen, I'm gonna leave it there, Sarah. I better let you go. Come here. Thank you very much for all the help. Thank you very much for all the support. And you will see there's a link to the parent course, but there's also a link to, I just popped it in there again. there's a link there to our Facebook page. So if you feel like giving us a quick review, obviously if it's positive, if it's negative, then just drop me an email and we'll talk about it. But that's it. You'll see an email from me tomorrow. I'll shoot out 1 or 2 emails next week. And we do try to send out emails every week, if at all possible, that hopefully are helpful. Feel free to share it with any other families that you think it's going to be useful for, or any teachers. And we'll chat to you soon. All right. Thank you so much for your time. We'll send out the resources over the next day or so. All right. Have a good one. Have a lovely weekend. See you soon. Thanks, Sarah, for all the help. See you later.